Samantha Chapter 1. Samantha! The voice broke through the summer afternoon like a crack. The leaves of the quiet old oak tree suddenly rustled and dropped a squirming bundle of arms and legs. Samantha Parkington tumbled out of the tree. "Samantha, you're really dumb," the voice continued. It was coming from a hole in the hedge that separated Samantha's house from Eddie Ryland's. "You're so dumb you don't even know how to climb a tree." Samantha glanced at her scraped and bleeding knee and looked pained. Not because of the tree, but because the voice was at it again. She glared at its owner with a look that could have frozen water in July. "Go away, Eddie!" But Eddie's round, sticky face didn't go away. "You're so dumb. You probably think 3 times 4 is 12, he said. "Eddie," Samantha looked disgusted, 3 times 4 is 12. "Well, anyway, you're so dumb." That was enough for Samantha. "Eddie," she said, "if you don't get out of here right now, I'll take your entire beetle collection from behind the shed and I'll put it in the offering plate at church on Sunday." She paused to be sure he was listening. "And I'll tell your mother you did it." Eddie's eyes grew wide. He pulled his mouth into a frog face and left to find a safer hiding place for his beetle collection. Samantha examined her knee. The bleeding had stopped, but her stocking was badly torn. She could picture how Grandmary would look when she saw it. Grandmary's eyes had a soft, warm light when they looked at Samantha, but her face could be very stern when she talked about growing up. "Discipline," Grandmary always said, "is what turns girls into ladies." Samantha tugged at the hole in her stocking, but she couldn't hide it. The taffeta bow that had held her dark brown hair drooped over her forehead. Yes, this was a job for Jessie. Samantha hurried up the walk and climbed the porch steps 2 at a time. At the front door she slowed down. If there was any noise at the front door, Elsa might come. Elsa was the new maid. She was always grumpy, and Samantha didn't want to listen to a lecture now. Luckily, the door was quiet, so no one saw Samantha run all the way to the 3rd floor. There at the end of the hall was the sewing room, and in the corner sat Jessie. She had fine brown skin, dark eyes, and a wide, bright smile. Yards and yards of soft pink material tumbled around her, and the sewing machine clicked quietly as her feet pressed the treadle back and forth. She hummed to its rhythm as her delicate hands guided the cloth past the flashing needle. Jessie made clothes for the household. She was working on a new dress for Grandmary, but she stopped as Samantha came through the door. "Oh, Miss Samantha, just look at you," Jessie said. As she stood and turned, Jessie's large floating apron swirled over the basket of threads and laces that rested on the floor. "What have you been up to?" "No, don't tell me. I don't want to know. Here you are, 9 years old, almost a lady, and still getting into mischief like a ragamuffin. What will your Grandmary say?" Samantha folded her hands and looked at the floor until Jessie was quiet. The mild scolding was a small price to pay for the help she knew Jessie would give her. Already Jessie had brushed the grass and dust from her hair. Now she checked Samantha's dress for tears and stains. She spotted the torn stocking. "Take off those shoes and stockings right now." "Does your knee hurt?" asked Jessie. "No, Jessie, it's all right. I'd just rather not have to explain to Grandmary," said Samantha. Jessie smiled and reached for her sewing basket. Samantha found a small clean rag and wet it from the water pitcher. She sponged her injured knee while Jessie sat down to repair the damaged stocking. As Samantha looked around the room, she noticed a piece of jelly biscuit on the floor. She must have dropped it the day before. 3 ants had found it. She was about to tell Jessie when she noticed 2 more ants on their way. It would be fun to see how many would come. Samantha sighed loudly. "It must be awfully boring to be grown up," she said. Jessie laughed softly. "Well, that depends. It depends a lot on the person. Now you, Miss Samantha, I don't think you'll have to be worried about being bored, even when you're grown up." There were 7 ants on the jelly biscuit now. "I'll bet Cornelia isn't bored," said Samantha. Jessie laughed again. "No, I don't imagine Miss Cornelia is very often bored," she said. Cornelia was a friend of Samantha's favorite uncle. She was pretty and dark-haired, and she laughed easily. Anyone could see that she liked Uncle Gard a lot. But Samantha didn't think Cornelia was right for Uncle Gard. She thought someone like Alice Roosevelt, the president's daughter, would be better. Alice Roosevelt did the most exciting things, and the newspapers were always talking about her. "Is Uncle Gard going to marry Cornelia?" asked Samantha. "That's none of your business," Jessie said firmly, "and children shouldn't ask such questions." Samantha grumbled softly. "A minute ago I was almost a lady. Now I'm a child again." 12 ants were on the biscuit, and 3 were on the way. "Uncle Gard is a spy, you know," Samantha said. "Miss Samantha!" Jessie's head shot up in surprise. "Where do you get such foolish ideas?" "Well, he should be a spy," Samantha went on. "He's so handsome and brave, everyone would just fall in love with him. He could get their secrets, and they'd be so in love with him, they wouldn't even care." "I think you'd better keep such ideas to yourself," Jessie said as she looked closely at the hole she was mending. "You've made quite enough trouble for one day." There were 19 ants around that jelly biscuit. "Jessie, did you know my mother and father?" Samantha asked. Jessie spoke gently. "You know I didn't, child. That accident in the boat happened when you were just 5. You know I didn't come to work for your grandmother till you were 7. Samantha had known that. Asking had really been wishing. She touched the locket pinned to her dress. Inside the small gold heart was a picture of her mother and father. She would have loved to hear Jessie talk about them. When Jessie told stories, she made everything sound like magic. Jessie would have made Samantha's parents seem like a prince and princess. "Tell me about New Orleans, Jessie, please." Jessie picked up a piece of silk for the sleeve of Grandmary's new dress. Her musical voice began to tell about a place where flowers bloomed in winter, a place where there were huge white mansions and balconies made of iron that looked like lace. She told about spicy shrimp and about music and dancing in the streets. And the best part was, everything Jessie said was true. She didn't have to make up stories about faraway places. Her husband, Lincoln, was a porter on the train that ran to New Orleans. Lincoln brought home wonderful tales of the places he'd seen and the people he'd met, and he never forgot Samantha. She had a scrapbook almost full of colorful postcards that he sent her from all of his trips. Sometimes he brought her pralines from New Orleans, brown sugary candy crowded with sweet pecans. Jessie and Lincoln made Samantha's world wide and beautiful. An hour passed easily with Jessie's soft voice carrying Samantha to dreamlike places.